You're in bed with your wife, and you're like, "Do you have any cushions for the pharmacist?" Oh no! Oh no! Welcome to ScapeChatz. This is episode 34. I'm Alan, and I'm here with two guests today. You're not guests. One of you is a guest, the other one is a co-host. Christ almighty!
I'm so happy to be here.
Welcome to ScapeChatz. I'm Alan, and I'm here with Magellan.
Hey.
How you doing, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing it.
That's really good. I'm glad you're doing it. You know who else is doing it is our wonderful, lovely guest host here to discuss the season 3 finale. It's Brian Hall.
Yo!
Yo, yo, yo,
Brian.
my dude, what's good?
Everything's good. I'm in a good mood.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, I made it sound great.
It's good because we're usually in a terrible mood when we record this thing.
Yeah, I need to take an antidepressant before every... I kind of do. Farscape's a very sad show. Mm-hmm. But yeah, we are talking the season 3 finale this week. Well, our first single episode discussion of ScapeChatz.
I don't think that's true.
Is it not?
I feel like we did another one. It's certainly the first in recent memory. Yes,
for sure. And it's season 3, episode 2, The Dog with Two Bones. No, The Dog with Two Bones. It was written by David Kemper, directed by Andrew Prouse, and it aired April 26th, 2002 in the United States. Fuck. The new norm has been set, gentlemen. This episode was amazing.
Yeah,
it was so good.
It's another classic Farscape finale episode where I literally did say out loud, well, fuck, when it was over. Because it's just, here we go. That's that. I'll say this is, I think, honestly, this is in my top 3 favorite episodes. I think it got up there real quick.
As soon as I realized it was basically Human Reaction 2.0, just in terms of like what it's exploring,
right, thematically,
it like clicked immensely with me, and I really liked the jumping back and forth. Brian, what did you think of it?
Yeah, no, this is why I wanted to request it to be on this episode. Is I think it was a really powerful episode, and you're right about the thematic lines of Crichton examining this idea of would he and the Moya crew, would they ever fit in on Earth? And that's where the nonlinear editing, I think a lot of people, one of the fan favorite episodes is Scratch and Sniff. And one of my favorite parts of that is sort of that nonlinear editing style where you're jumping back and forth between what's actually happening and antagonists, something telling a story. In this case, it's John's visions, and even his visions have kind of like 2 layers to it, because there's the visions that he's having trying to force a situation, like make everything mesh, and then there's the vision where he's getting forced upon him, which is when everything's going really wrong and how it would probably actually happen, mixed with the crew actually aboard Moya and what's happening there.
I think it was a smart decision of them to keep the, whatever I guess you would call the A plot, like the actual real world plot, pretty straightforward. Because it comes down to like, here's how we're going to explore how another ship, another Leviathan, what happens when it goes awry and when things go bad, and when we're still handling the whole Talon death from the last episode, but we're doing it in this way that's like, it is a plot that involves us taking more life, as the crew, instead of just like honoring the life that we have. We made another mistake and we killed something else.
And they really reflect on that, too, on this episode, more than a lot of the others, is, the weight of, should we take a life, seems to have a heavier burden than normal.
Yeah, it's a very big decision. It's a very dramatic moment when they're like, yes, we have to kill this thing.
And I think part of that comes down to just the way Leviathans tend to be. We've always seen them in sort of a subservient role, almost, we think of them as like a house pet or a caregiver in some way.
Pet house.
Yeah, they're always safety from danger and not the danger itself. This is the first time we've seen a Leviathan representing an actual threat itself.
Yeah, well, yeah, that Leviathan, and then also the first time we've seen Moya be like, you know what? Kill it. That was also haunting in a certain way.
Well, because also Moya is like, often the voice of reason for everyone and being like, don't turn Talon off, don't kill my son, and try to avoid violence or else I'm going to leave you forever. And then this is that turning moment of like, no, Moya knows what needs to be done because she is a mother who lost her child, and like she's brought to that brink of like, I have to now accept that I'm willing to kill not only another living thing, but another thing of my own species.
Yeah, and that's something I think that Crichton kind of got hung up on, is he even says, I don't think Pilot or Moya's going to let us kill one of her own species. And then it's like, yep, that's exactly what she wants.
Yeah, if it's going to help us get what we just, the one thing we need to do, which is bury my son, then it has to be done. I'm going to read this episode's plot summary, the real brief paragraph from the Farscape Illustrated Companion, just to get us a good springboard. As Moya arrives at the Leviathan burial ground to deposit the remains of Talon, Crichton is besieged by visions of life if he returned to Earth, and his fears of whether Aaron would fit in. Everyone's preparing to leave Moya once Talon has been buried, but first they have to deal with another Leviathan, who tries to prevent Moya from entering the area. A mysterious old woman has remained on Moya after all the other refugees from the command carrier have left, and she drugs Crichton in an effort to help him see the truth he's been searching for. Pilot discovers that the other Leviathan has gone mad and has killed her pilot. Moya refuses to accept that she will not be allowed to bury her son and asks for the crew's help to kill the rogue. Melissa Jaffer was introduced as a recurring character in this episode, y'all. So weird. Such a weird decision. Her character doesn't even have a name yet.
It's currently
She's old woman.
Yeah.
Yeah, they call her, in season 4, they call her Grandma. She does have a name, and they do reveal it, but they call her Old Woman, they call her Granny, they call her Grandma.
I like her a lot, and I was like put off by it at first, but I think the idea that, because they do explain it, like 30 minutes in, she goes, oh, by the way, when you like took out the command carrier, a bunch of refugees like left, and you took me with you. Like, thanks for that.
And all the other refugees had gotten off, and they're asking her, why did you stay when everyone else left?
Right. Yeah, and she's clearly, first of all, in terms of like knowing that she's going to become a recurring character on the crew, I really appreciate that they have an older character, because I feel like right now the whole team is like roughly the same age, especially now that Zahn's gone. Like they haven't had an older figure in a while.
Rigel's pretty old, but he's kind of immature.
Yeah. Right,
exactly. He is mentally very young, actually. And Dargo's technically a teenager for a Luxon, but, the actor is much older. I like her, though, and her cool third eye. And all of the lines where she's talking to Crichton, being like, I want you to see, and you need to see the truth, and all this stuff. And, it turns out the truth is real fucked. It turns out, nobody on Earth is going to be okay with your friends coming with you. It's not going to go well.
And that's the, I think her point in when she blows that fairy dust or whatever it is in his face is because he's kind of hiding from it. Even he already knows that would already be the end result. And she's trying to get him to just acknowledge it. Quit trying to retreat into this fantasy world where, like, everything's fine and you get married and everyone's just having a great time and that's it. Like, what would happen.
Right. He's seen it simulated in a human reaction. So it's not even like logically he knows. He has actually seen it go bad. But I think the thing with regards to that I really liked about the linear editing, like you were saying, Brian, is the idea of like, because this episode is cutting between the fantasy devolving and him arguing with those same people. Like there's that scene where he's fighting with Dargo and Dargo's with the kids and they're having the argument about Dargo going to find his brother-in-law in both places. It makes you realize, like, what's going on here is the fact that it's not like when they go to Earth, it's going to go bad the way it did in Human Reaction, which was the Earth government is going to just dissect these people and pick them apart. That was the problem before. Now the problem is not we're going to get new problems when we go to Earth, but just that we're not going to be able to escape our current problems. So it's kind of similar in that way, but then it's also expanding on that thing that we've been talking about already and showing that, Scorpius is dead, but there's still so much baggage that the Moya crew is carrying.
Oh, and I think also, Dargo specifically wants to go after Macton, and everyone wants to leave, kind of represents the problem that John's in, because, you know, he's the dog with two bones. He wants Earth and he wants Aaron and he wants the crew to all stay together. But the only reason they begin together is they've kind of been stuck in a little bit of a limbo where, you know, we're being chased, we're escaped fugitives, people are trying to kill us. And it's only now that we're free of those that we can kind of go back to pursuing our individual goals, which are not to stay together and be a big, happy family in one place.
Is there something cynical about the end message of this episode being that these people can't live in one place together and have a happy life? Is that what y'all would argue is the like sort of like final tying bow of all of Crichton's visions?
I don't know that it's cynical, but I mean, I think Crichton's envisioning them like, oh, we're on Earth and we're pals, and it's like, so Rigel's just going to give up on he doesn't ever want to be Dominar again. You know, Dargo doesn't eventually want to go settle down on that quiet farmland, and Chiana doesn't want to go ever find her brother. It requires that everyone to give up on their goals, which they've kind of had to backburner until now just because of safety concerns, or, you know, there's not been any opportunity. But for them to stay together forever, and I think for anybody, that's unreasonable. We all make our own paths in the world. I don't think it's necessarily cynical, but it does represent that John has a conflict where he's almost happy with the limbo they've been in. He doesn't want to see that disrupted because that's his family now. He wants to mix them. He wants the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I think my thinking on that is that the truth coming out in his visions isn't a cynicism about like you can't find your dreams. I think it's more revealing that no matter what your situation in life, there's value to where you are, and our hopes or fantasies sometimes place that value into a future context in such a way that we ignore it or don't really acknowledge it where we are at the moment. And so this episode is kind of saying like, listen, there's the place you want to be and the place you are, and there's something to be valued in both of them, and you can put all of your hopes in the place you want to be, but that's going to kind of distract you. And there's kind of there's a moral lesson there, but I don't know that it's necessarily a cynical lesson.
That way of interpreting it resonates with me a whole lot, and I did pick up on that while watching the episode, like as someone who is known from my friends as being the kind of person that is constantly working towards something better, and I sometimes forget to remember that I'm like living in a pretty decent present. Like that message feels incredibly potent in a way that like only sci-fi can do, because it's easy for us to say like, oh, you know, you're working towards your future, but you need to live in the present. But like to visualize that as like, hey, here's what your future would look like if you worked only towards that and ignored all other things that you have going on, and like being able to show that and jump back and forth. Because there's also like the thematic connection in both the like John's fantasies and the Moya plot of like, what are we willing to give up? And that's like a big theme of the whole show, but you clearly see it in the way that Dargo is very happy that he made this ship, but at the same time he has to use it to kill and take another life after he just has been coming to terms with like how his rage has led to other people being hurt. Like it's really, the jumping back and forth is like really smart because the two stories have like clear delineated thematic connection, I think.
And not even limited here, because at one point when they're gearing up, they're getting ready to get on board Dargo's ship, which I can't remember. Does it have a name at the moment? Lala?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's named after his wife.
Okay, yeah. I wasn't sure if that happened at the end of season 3 or early season 4, but so they're getting ready to board Lala to go kill the Road Leviathan, and Jules kind of like harassing Dargo, like, even though it's mentally disturbed, you're still about to take a life. Are you okay with that? And that question absolutely applies to his brother-in-law Macton as well. And you can kind of tell by his reaction, he kind of brushes her off, like he doesn't want to think about it. He just wants to just buckle down, do what he thinks has to be done for righteousness or justice or whatever, and end goal his cause is, but he doesn't really want to think about the ethical ramifications of taking a life.
There's so much. I want to dig into some of the stuff that happens in the alternate universe though, because it clearly unravels in a really interesting way, in a really like gradual way. Because it starts with like, you know, they're at the wedding altar, and like they're having a cute moment where she has the dress, and then like one of the next scenes is they're talking to one of the like clerks, and I forget what they're asking for. But we're reminded that like Aaron doesn't speak English.
Wants to say like charge it, like put it on
the
credit card, and then the person doesn't understand what she's saying.
And
Which Yeah, she's saying Sergeant, which, first of all, that lady is just not trying.
Yeah.
Because when someone hands you a credit card, there's only so many things that could be said. You could hand them a credit card and be like, wub, 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 and they should kind of be like, oh, okay, so credit, got it. Credit and debit's really the only two options.
Right.
So, and I'm guessing this is an Australian actress. I don't know that for sure, but that's my assumption. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like this is a really awful stereotype of Americans, because she's like, what is she like, from Bosnia?
Bosnia, yeah.
And I'm like, mad, because I can't tell if I'm mad what a bad stereotype this is, or for how accurate it is.
I think it's a little of both. But you gotta imagine also as a wedding clerk that you're getting plenty of people that don't just speak your native language. Like, people marry out of their... They marry people that don't speak the same language as them. That lady was shitty. But that's the first sort of, like, signal that, like, there's trouble in paradise. But it seems simple enough, because John's kind of like, oh, it's okay. Right. Like, you did fine, English is a difficult language. Half the time people don't understand what I'm talking about, which is true.
Yeah.
If you watch the show.
Very true.
It's very accurate. And then we get later scenes like, I don't remember the exact order, but like the Chiana one made me really uncomfortable.
When she's with Jack?
Well, yeah, there's stuff early on where it's like, oh, Chiana's here and she's like kind of sexy. And then she's in the hotel room and she's like being flirty with John and talking about how she had sex with all of his groomsmen. And you're like,
and then she's been shopping and he's like, you don't have any money. And she's like, shoplifting.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, why? How are you supposed to explain capitalism and the economy to people from space? That doesn't work. Although, as we discussed before, they do have insurance fraud in space. So I don't know.
And they have commerce planets. So clearly the idea of commerce in general exists in this universe.
They should have, right. I think they live on a barter economy, though. Yeah, I think that's how most of that stuff works. Yeah. So they're not used to, like, you give me paper and I give you,
Well, no, that's not true, because, you have, I think Peacekeepers have credits. We saw in Scratch and Sniff they have those Brandar tiles.
Forgot about the Brandar tiles.
Yeah, when they robbed the Shadow Depository, they're all going around saying, we have so much currency. So, like, even the idea of currency still exists. Yeah, so a marketplace and capitalism should not be new concepts to any of these people.
Yeah, so it seems like Gianna's just a criminal.
Well, and so that's sort of the point, though, is John's trying to imagine this life where everyone's happy and harmonious on Earth, but you can't escape the fact that that's just not in everyone's nature. Gianna's sort of this out-of-control character where she's hypersexualized and does what she needs to do to survive. She doesn't really let ethics play a huge role in her decision-making, so that's not necessarily going to fly on Earth, because she is going to shoplift and sleep with a bunch of people.
Right.
And then we get that really, 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 like, sadly awkward moment where John's father comes in, and then she kisses him, and he's like, hey, baby. And you're like, no, Jack, please. It's like, your mother's been gone for a very long time.
That part of it was like, okay. There are other parts of the whole fantasy unraveling thing that I believed and I could buy into, but that part seemed so, like... I don't know. It just seemed like John was like, yeah, and then Gianna's probably going to, like, sleep with my dad or something. It's going to be really bad.
Well, I think the way to interpret that made sense to me was, like, this is the id inside of John's head, like, his primal anxieties that we're seeing visualized. Like, there's definitely a part of him that would worry about that.
Right, but what I'm saying is, like, I feel like the point of him starting to see the truth was that he would start to see things that were more likely to happen. I mean, I guess it is about revealing his anxieties, but there were some anxieties that were more like, yeah, that's still going to be a problem. And some that were like, no, don't worry about that. That's not the case. So it's hard to know where the, like, truth is, because it's not this ideal fantasy situation, but it's also not the most crazy anxious thing ever, and not everything's going to be horrible.
And because you were talking earlier, I think Brian was about, like, in the real world, Dargo wants to be like, he wants to settle down, he wants to have a farm and a family and kids and all of that. But in John's head, like, he's gonna be a playboy for the rest of his life, and kind of, like, grow into, like, the sad, weird uncle who comes to the wedding with, like, a girl on each arm, and he's like, hey, what's up? You're the second happiest man at this wedding today. And you're like, damn it. Like in Scratch and Sniff, we saw that Dargo in like real life can still get it down and knows how to party and have fun. But like that moment where he's at the wedding again didn't feel true to character. It felt true to John's interpretation of the character.
Yeah, that was still within the dream version though, the like fantasy version, I think.
Oh, you're saying there's a difference between the dream stuff and the part where she's like, now you're going to see what's actually going to happen? You mean?
I think so. I mean, that's what the episode leads us to believe, that there's stuff towards the beginning that John's kind of fantasizing, and it feels, it doesn't feel necessarily truthful, but it's kind of fun, and you're like, yeah, why not? That's a nice time. It's shot in this way where it's kind of eerie, like the wedding dress scene at the beginning I found very eerie, because I thought somebody was going to get shot. It didn't happen until later, but
well, yeah,
that's what I was feeling. So there's an eeriness to it, but there's scenes where it's like, yeah, you know, he's fantasizing and this maybe could happen. And then there's the moment where she blows the pixie stick filling on his face, and now he's seeing what the truth is. So I think with Dargo, it was like, he's a funny playboy, but then he's like, he's with the kids and he wants to be somewhere else. That's sort of where I saw the division.
And then my read on this was that whatever it was that she blew into his face, it's more like it tore down whatever mental blocks he had put in place to see the truth. And she even says, when she does it, see the truth, it calls to you in your own tongue. So I think it's more, he knows what would happen. He's just been hiding from that reality.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
You know, he's been painting a pretty picture, and she just kind of tore down that wall. She kind of pulled down that curtain, and you're seeing the wizard behind.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful the way that they bounce between that stuff. And then you also get these, like, I don't know, I want to talk about like the wedding itself as a setting, just because I think it's handled really interestingly and well. But just like a brief shout out to the fact that also during that final wedding scene, we get the perfect, like, hey, here's what everyone's doing at the wedding. There's a cake that just looks like Moya, and here's Rigel eating all the cake, ha ha ha, and then here's Pilot, and you're like, wait, what? What the fuck? Pilot's just sitting down, and there's a piece of trivia that's like, it took us 3 hours to get that puppet out of its like,
yeah, for like a
installation.
2-second shot.
Exactly, it's like a quick cut just to be like, hey, and Pilot's here. And it made me feel like Pilot was really small because he fit into a wedding, into like a chair at a table.
And I don't know what was up. Maybe they couldn't hide the puppeteers quite as well. But if you look at the expression on Pilot's face when he's sitting there, he almost looks drugged.
Oh, yeah.
He's kind of just like,
That's how I am through most weddings, though. That's the only way to get through them.
Maybe he was crying. He just got kind of an ugly cry face.
Yes, he's full of emotion. And then Jewel has the most ostentatious dress ever. There's lots of good, like, I don't know. This show, because it's a sci-fi show where they're in space all the time, they don't get to play with outfits that much. But then when they do, like when they go other places, it's like, oh, now we get to have the fun dresses and the fun, like, formal wear kind of stuff. And then just like the wedding in general, as like I said, as a setting, is the most like generically opulent, perfect, like dream wedding that you read about in books. Like, there's the garter scene and all that stuff.
Yeah, their wedding theme was wedding.
Exactly. What theme are you looking for? Wedding.
We're looking for cream. That's our wedding theme, is cream.
What's your primary color? Just cream. Just cream it up.
Okay, so let me throw a defense out at you guys. Right now, describe your perfect wedding. Because I think most guys would probably describe exactly what you're seeing.
That's why we don't have guest hosts on very often.
Uh-oh.
Because they really just call us on our shit.
I'm changing the tone. This is now a wedding episode. Let's talk flowers.
My dream wedding, the theme is dog with two bones themed. So it's like half of all the groom's guests are dressed like Farscape characters, and all the bride's guests are dressed like normal, the most boring wedding guests ever.
And they're all like, Magellan, why do I have to wear tentacles again? And you're just like, just put it on, Dargo. And he's like, I'm Gary. I don't know why you keep calling me that.
Didn't they call Dargo in A Human Reaction Gary? Is that a joke? Was that subconscious?
It wasn't Human Reaction. It was Won't Get Fooled Again. He was Gary Regal.
Yes! Oh my god! Wow, nice connections. My ideal wedding would be Phil Collins themed, so everyone would have Phil Collins masks. and it would just be Phil Collins performing, and I would be marrying him, and it would be great. It'd be really good.
Oh my god.
That'd be the whole
That's
wedding.
the scariest nightmare I've ever envisioned.
I know. I picture them all like wearing the masks, and for some reason I had a flash to like the Purge Anarchy.
Yeah, right.
They're just going around town
Crime
with those
is legal.
masks.
There's like a very slow version of what's that film? You Can't Hurry Love. It's like very slow and demonic. No, you just have to wait.
Your bride's just crying like hardcore, like I don't want to be here.
And I'm like, just please. You can't
Let this happen. I don't want to.
And then as we're walking down the aisle, it's playing the drum fill from what's the song?
In the Air Tonight.
But it's playing it it's playing it on a 1 second delay, so it's like dun 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 dun. It's just like 6 different tracks of it playing after one another until it's nonstop drums. There's no drop until we do the kiss, and then it's like dun 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 dun.
So at the end of all the visions, John makes a comment about like, oh, I tried to imagine it like I thought it would be, but it was a nightmare. And I would just like to say that John didn't hear your description of your wedding. He has no idea what nightmares are.
Exactly. My life, my dreams, Earth, and my friends. I tried to merge the two, and they're incompatible. But there was no Phil Collins, so I guess it wasn't that weird.
It could have been worse. They all just died, and that was it, and that was fine.
That death scene is awesome. It's really sad, obviously. But it's very Godfather, actually, where it's just like, everything is so nice. Right. You're like, damn
That's
it,
a
no,
great
everyone's
comparison.
dead, everyone. Even Jewel, even Pilot, But it really does, again, hammer home the whole, like, even if you made it to the wedding, even if everybody was able to come and everybody was able to put aside their bullshit and, like, sit down here, you're all gonna get killed because you're in the same room and you've been chased your whole life. These people are gonna catch you and get to Earth and kill you here. Like, you don't want to get away from it.
You know, and there's two, I think, really good moments in that final scene, because as Aaron's dying, she says, "Don't worry about me, I've never felt better."
Yep.
Which is exactly what the Talon Crichton said to her before he died.
Which interestingly implies that, like, again, Talon Crichton and Moya Crichton, like, are still fundamentally the same because they still both thought of the same last words.
Yeah.
Aaron said that when she died.
I know, but
but it's in his vision.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So, like, that final words idea was in both Crichton's head all
Interesting.
along.
Which
So now
also,
with
I
this
think,
Crichton,
says that in his mind, that's just the best going out words. Like,
Yeah,
he's
when
already
he
got
was-
this
he'll never come up with
slotted
like
and
10.
filed.
When he was 10, he was like, my last words are going to be, I feel, what is it? Oh, I forgot.
Don't worry, I've never felt
I've
better.
never felt better.
Yeah.
Yeah, those will be good.
And so he just applies it to everybody. Like, anytime someone dies, maybe that's what his
don't worry,
mom
it
said when
kind of
she went
didn't-
out. I don't know.
It kind of didn't fit Aaron's death very well because she didn't feel better. The way
Her wedding was ruined.
yeah, in her context, it was kind of like, don't worry, I don't have to live on Earth anymore. I feel pretty good.
Seriously!
Yeah.
That's a good point. Because, there's, like, the scene earlier in the diner where her and Jack are, like, she's like, oh, everything sucks. Like, I hate it here. Everything smells weird. No one likes me. Earth sucks. And you're like, oh, this is brutal. But she doesn't fit in. So, I don't know. That's why that last line, again, was very weird. You're like, right? Did you feel better?
I found it odd that Jack was the character she was confiding in.
Yep, totally. Very strange.
Because why... Like, none of the Moya crew members interacted with each other when they were on Earth. It was all they were interacting with John. And you'd think that...
Or Jack.
And you'd think that Aaron would, like, I don't know, talk to Dargo or something. Because then they could both be like, yeah, it blows.
I'm going to read that exchange, actually, because it's really good. They're, like, eating, and she says, don't you ever get bored living on the same planet, never going anywhere? And what about living in a house? It's too quiet. There's no engine noise. And he says, well, wait till summer when the air conditioning kicks on. She says, John has this fantasy about us, having kids and dogs and a pool and barbecues. He's like, must seem like a strange culture. She says, I am miserable here, and he doesn't see it. I'm going to get married, end up like Betty Crocker. I just keep wondering when he's going to wake up. Which is, of course, when he wakes up and says, I'm awake.
I love those transitions, though.
This show kills it with the transitions consistently. It's like, I don't know, it's their thing. It's their bread and butter. I always come back to the, like, John saying in, I think, season 2, he's like, I feel fine. Cut to the mirror where he's looking at Scorpius. That's like one of my favorite things in the whole show. The show knows how to use the cuts real well.
Yeah.
I think that covers most of the wedding stuff, though. Do you all have like notes?
I had one more moment. There's one great moment, I think. And you guys have talked about it a little bit in previous episodes, this idea that Scorpius, as a villain, is not just kind of a two-dimensional bad guy to be bad kind of guy. Everything he does is sort of in service to his goals. Even if what he's doing is atrocious, he's not doing it just to be a bad person. He's doing it to achieve something. And we sort of see that at the end of the Into the Lion's Den, two-parter, where, you know, they're still both wearing the eye-inch bracelets. Scorpius kind of says, I'm not going to leave the ship. He could take Crichton out with him if he wanted to, if he was really a vengeful person. And even says, you know, John asks him, are you going after Earth? And he's sort of like, to what end? Revenge against you? I don't... You know, so he's sort of not a guy that does things badly just for the sake of being bad. So there's this great moment after the wedding massacre, the Red Wedding, if you will.
Hey.
Oh, yeah. Everyone's just kind of laying down on the ground. They're
Everyone's
dead,
sleeping. I'm not sure why they're sleeping. But they're
Taking
they're just taking some naps. One of them sleeping half in cake. It's
in
fine.
ketchup.
Scorpius walks over and kind of kneels down by John and says, like, well then, John, what did you expect? And he kind of looks up, and the camera stays on him for like a second or two, and his face just has this great expression of regret, almost like, I don't like that I had to do this.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because it's like he didn't like send an army after John. It was like, I did this to get the job, like to clean this up and to get this problem out of the way.
Yeah,
this
I
is
need
no
you to
longer a thing I
focus.
wanted to do because it made me happy or like fulfilled a goal for me. I did it because it was something to do.
Exactly. And even when Crichton's vision, so even in Crichton's head, he kind of gets that. You know, Scorpius, even in his head, isn't just some marauding caricature. That even though he knows he would do these things, but he doesn't want to necessarily. But he will, which is just as bad.
Right. He
Yeah,
knows that
so-
Scorpius will fly through space for 60 years to say 2 sentences to John and then turn around and fly away.
Scorpius is weird. You know, he's the thing about Wayne Pigram, though, is in this show, we've established that he's one of the best actors. Just period. Like, he's real, real good. But no one's going to recognize Wayne Pigram on the streets, ever. You might see Ben Browder and be like, hey, you look like a weird mustache man, because he has let his hair go in so many ways. But Wayne Pigram looks nothing like Scorpius.
Yeah, no, he's quite handsome.
Yeah, and he's, like, aged pretty well.
I feel like it's the same with Stark, though, and probably even Virginia Hay. Yeah, and once they're out of their makeup, I don't know that I would recognize Anthony Simcoe either. I think, Magellan, you mentioned that his Twitter account has him with like a really rough picture with a beard. I don't think I would recognize him.
Yeah, it's bizarre.
Anthony Simcoe, please do acting. He said former actor in his Twitter bio, and I'm not going to be like, hey, please come back to acting if for whatever reason he stopped. But like, you were such a good actor, and Dargo's my favorite character. Please, Mr. Simcoe, please.
Yeah.
Who was I going to say? Yeah, even like Gigi Edgley. A lot of this cast aren't recognizable in real life. Like Aaron and John get the benefit of that, and they're also the two most active, still acting today people on it, I think. Yeah. But then like Jonathan Hardy, especially even worse than Wayne Pigram, is just like, hey, you're the voice of that cool puppet that everyone liked.
Well, he passed away, didn't he?
Oh, did he?
I think I might be wrong about that. I hope I am, but
sad.
Yeah, a few
I think
years
he
ago.
died.
You're right, in 2012. Oh, well. He was 71. That's very sad. Thank you for providing us with one of the best voices, though. That's good work. Did you know that Wayne Pigram was a young Grand Moff Tarkin in Revenge of the Sith?
Yeah, huh.
I just realized that right now. So he did things for
Yeah,
a
he's
while.
keeping on message with his roles.
Yes, continuing to be shitty, evil scumbag. Gotta love him.
shitty evil scumbag with purpose.
With purpose. With a motive. What was I going to say? Oh, yeah. So the Moya plot is something that I think we should touch on at least a little bit. Because there's a lot of, similar to like when they were talking about turning off Talon, there's a lot of good moral implications of talking about like, should we kill this thing? And just like we're learning a lot more about how Leviathans work. Like they have burial rituals, which is cool because that then means that they have a concept of an afterlife, I guess, and also like a spirituality and some sort of religion basis for these ships, which is really interesting.
Which we saw
also,
a little bit back in the Look at the Princess trilogy
Right,
when we
with
realized
the
they had
builders.
deities. Yeah.
Oh, that was in the look. I remember that. And then Jonathan Hardy was like the god of the builders.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the only time you actually got to be in front of a camera.
Exactly. I really appreciated that stuff. Were there any moments in the Moya plot that y'all like wanted to mention? Because there's a lot of lines. Like that's actually a ton of the talking in this episode is all of that. But there's like specific stuff I can't really think of right now.
I was going to point out that, when Pilot finds out that the other Leviathan killed its pilot by nutrient starvation, as symbiotic relationships go, one of them has a significant advantage over the other, which to me makes it really scary. If you think back to the episode The Way We Weren't, when you see how our pilot first came to be on board Moya, when they took out the Peacekeepers, killed Velarek and them, killed the previous pilot, and installed our pilot, and they reawakened Moya, if she didn't like what had happened, she could have just killed him.
Right. Yeah.
That's an insane amount of trust.
Well, also that they established in that episode that Pilot made the choice to be inside of Moya and is now in constant eternal pain, a little bit, Which, like, hey, there aren't any characters with chronic pain on TV, so great way to go with that. But, yeah, like, the fact that the messed up Leviathan killed her pilot is like, well, shit, if they can do that, then you can do anything to our pilot. Our pilot is, like, a beautiful, wonderful character who we love, but he could just get killed if Moya and him had a disagreement one day. Reminding you that, like, she has so much control, again, despite being what we think to be an inanimate object, but is in fact not. I think, honestly, the concept of Leviathans is one of the best things about this show. Like, one of the most cool, unique things. Because, like, what an idea that the ship is alive. And not only alive, but it makes decisions, and it chooses to do or not do things, but it's also their home,
Right.
And
it also makes decisions that are emotional as well, which is,
right,
I think,
it's not
a big
just
factor.
cleanly logical.
And I think it has an advantage over other sci-fi that has kind of the idea of if the ship ever gets destroyed, we'll just build another one, a newer, better one. You can't do that with life.
Right. If Moya dies, then we lose our one of our crew members. And we can't just get another one because we know that there's like a whole process to all of it.
And one who's been a bit of a maternal figure to them as well.
Exactly. And then the old woman, I don't know, the old woman on the ship also like talks to everybody and talks to Dargo, and they talk, and Chiana calls her Wrinkles, which is kind of cute, but...
Oh yeah, Wrinkles. That's the other nickname. That sticks around for a while too.
Yeah, just
listen, Wrinkles.
On the old lady for a second, the old woman,
yeah.
At first, I found her presence very disorienting, and I was like, did I miss an episode? And then once I verified, like triple checked that I hadn't missed an episode, I was pretty happy because it's like, oh, good. This disorienting feeling is actually kind of helping this episode thematically, I think. So it's kind of.
And this is a point that Magellan, you've talked about before too, which is they don't waste any time. They jump right into plot. Yeah. And so rather than spending time showing them taking aboard the refugees, showing those refugees being like, okay, we're leaving, and showing one of them stick around because they feel like they owe a debt, we just, here's everybody on board going, who the hell is this person?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it also helps with the idea that, like, time in Farscape, you can make these jumps between episodes as long or as short as you want, which is a nice thing to just be able to do. And the other thing I appreciated about The Old Woman is that pretty much every other time in Farscape that we've had, like, this episode, there's a new character at the beginning, and we're not going to explain why they're there, they've turned out to be a villain. Or though just that episode's problem causer. I had a very strong Crackers Don't Matter vibe from her. Like, oh no, she's going to blow dust in everybody's face, and they're going to get these visions where they want to shoot each other. And that's kind of what I thought was happening when John... there's the scene where he's like shooting at peacekeepers in his mind, and he almost shoots Dargo.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, why is this happening? But then the old woman actually helped them with the whole ending, and like resolving their problems in a way where
and my interpretation of her has always been that she's trying to be helpful, and in her head she is, but she's sort of like that weird hippie person that's like, oh, you know what would make this better? Some patchouli tea, or something that's really just going to make things infinitely worse.
Mm-hmm.
But in their head, they're like, this'll help. This'll be good.
I'm trying to help. Right.
Yeah, but I think you're right. I think it's intentional that they tried to kind of make it be like, maybe you don't know what her intents are. So the first time she blows the fairy dust or whatever in John's face, he's repairing a console there in the mess, and you see her kind of creeping up behind him, and you're going, oh boy, here it comes. What's it going to be?
Do?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's going to be a refreshing dynamic, I think, to have. Her being older is a great thing to have in terms of character variety, but then also her just wanting to be helpful. There isn't really another character on the ship who their whole thing is that they want to be helpful. So that's another thing that'll be cool to sort of see play out. And then that aspect of like, she wants to be helpful and she's going to cause problems, because everybody causes problems in their own way. Rigel, selfish, Jewel melts things, whatever. But I think this is one of the first characters that we're going to be seeing who isn't self-serving most of the time.
And a little bit scatterbrained. She's also the only one that doesn't have very, at one point, they're asking her, like, what were you doing? Were you trying to hurt him? And she's like, no, I would never leave this pot going for so long. You're like, what the hell? Pay attention. There's a conversation happening here.
Yeah. It's like characters that I most want to see an episode on. Number 1, Rigel. Number 2, Old Lady. Number 3, the bugs that are on the bottom of the ship, the basement. I want them to have another episode. I'm just kidding. But yeah, I think she has a lot of potential, and I like her dynamic. I was going to say the same thing that you said, John, about like it's cool that she's one of the new characters that's actually like trying to help.
Yeah.
And like that, right after that Chowder scene, Shauna's like, Chowder, you said it was Chowder. And she's like, I can make you a Chowder. She runs away, and then John's like, Pip, who is that? And then Shauna's like, I thought she was with you. You're like, wait, what the fuck?
That's the other great thing is like, it's kind of another, I think I talked about when, I don't remember what the episode was, but there was an episode earlier this season where it was a Talon episode, and there was the kind of, John was imagining that flashback of Crace not killing Zalek's son. And so the episode set up like, ooh, what about that? But then immediately got into the action, and every character got distracted from it. So that's kind of happening here too, where it's the immediate question at the beginning is, who's this old lady? But the episode is like, we don't have time for that now. We got to deal with this other stuff. And as an audience member, you have to say, okay, I guess I'll find out later.
Hello, ScapeChatz listeners. This is Alan stepping in for the Moyabag this week on episode 34 of ScapeChatz. The Moyabag is the segment where we read and respond to your feedback. First up, we like to read the tweets that we received over at our Twitter account at ScapeChatz. We got one actually several days ago from Static Dax, who said, hey guys, sorry for no usual email this week. I've been swamped with overtime at work. Which we'll get back to because they managed to send us an email this week. So we're happy to have you back, Dax. Moving right along, I went to the trouble of tweeting at one Mr. Richard Manning about the show just to let him know that it exists and to thank him for his work on it, because my sources have told me that he's one of the more active members of the Farscape crew in terms of responding to fans on Twitter and stuff. Mr. Manning, if you're listening, it would be an absolute honor to have you on the show. You have our contact information, and that would be the greatest thing in the world. I don't want to tell people, like, hey, go bother Richard Manning, because don't do that. Like, don't. But what do you all recommend I do to get Ricky on our show? Like, Ricky, you beautiful man. Mr. Manning, rather. I'm all out of words to say other than please be on our podcast. Moving right along, one more bit of self-promotion. I finally created a GIF for the moment where Muquillis fire warps through into the Moya back in, I forget what episode it was. Oh, Meltdown. From back in season 3. So that can be found over on our Twitter, and it's also one of the top posts on the Farscape subreddit right now if you want to check that out. It's called Walk Into the Club Like. I ended up finding a program called GIF Cam that lets me very easily make GIFs, and it worked out very well, and I think it's a good GIF if you ever want to use that for your whatever purposes, your GIF purposes. And finally, we have the return of the wonderful and her memos regarding Into the Lion's Den. This episode is fucking wonderful. It is completely, utterly amazing, and when I start to get bored because I've seen it 3 times and I think I know how it ends, it takes my breath away over and over and over. They love the moral greatness of it, they love the greatness of the show, Scorpius, intense honesty of life, complexity of society, what's good, what isn't, Plus, it's beautifully shot, everyone's development is thrown into relief, which I love. Aaron and PK buddies, and the fact that they're still prisoners, but not really. And how nobody actually likes Scorpius because he's a nerd and doesn't get anything done. Same. I think, this is them saying, the eye-inch bracelets can differentiate between pain and other feelings, regarding our discussion of whether or not you would feel sexual pleasure if the other person with the eye-inch bracelet felt it. Because pain has a different neural thing than pleasant touch and other stuff, and I think they can sense that. Also, it's Chiana's default state when she's in an uncomfortable situation to assert her sexual dominance, which is a thing that I said on the episode, and Omen said, "Oh my god, true though, I've never noticed that before, and the fact that you made that connection is cool. Thank you. I always knew that for Chiana, sex is a matter of what she feels as necessity, but not that it was based in discomfort." Yeah, I feel like that kind of is my attempt at grasping at like what's the core of Chiana's character, is this like desire to be in control of her body and of her physicality and sexuality, obviously, because of the sort of chaste nature of the Nabari evil rule. Moving along, Strappa looks like the middle fish, which she says, responding to that, "I know y'all haven't seen TXF, but honestly, Strappa looks like a less terrifying version of Fluke Man that doesn't hunt and kill sewage workers." TXF referring to the X-Files. And about Strappa and getting a noble hero's death, well, you keep taking the words out of my mouth, so I don't have much to say. And then a lot of people commented on this when I said, "Why is there water on a spaceship?" To which she said, "Because carbon-based life forms need water to survive, mostly." And it ends with John and Aaron, but not them talking like normal. That silence carried the world, and that silence broke my heart. Thanks again for the memo. We got 2 emails this week that I would love to read for y'all. One is the return of Dax Static.
I put a shot to your system.
Greetings, Alan and Magellan. I hope you enjoyed these 3 episodes as much as I did the first time I saw them. Upon rewatching them, there were a few things that stood out to me as far as what I remembered and what actually happens. In no particular order, I forgot that the old lady appears in the final one. I thought she showed up in episode 1 of season 4, but the first time I watched, I did tend to marathon a lot of the episodes back to back, so that was an easy mistake to make. Second, I have no memory from my first watch that Crace revealed his plan to die with Talon to help the crew escape. I remember that he did it, of course. In fact, I even recall very specifically getting goosebumps when he said Starburst, and realizing what that meant in the moment. But the earlier conversation he has with John and Aaron, when he tells them what he's going to do, I don't recall at all. I'm kinda wondering if I dozed off for a minute or 2 the first time around, though that seems unlikely as I loved the episode so much that it's one of my favorites. I know it seems like I say it's one of my favorite episodes every other week. Well, that just goes to show how awesome Season 3 is. In fact, out of my top 5 episodes of Farscape, 4 are in Season 3. Third, I'm rather impressed this time around with Jewel. A lot more than I was at first. I like how in Dog with Two Bones, when Dargo is heading to his ship to kill the other Leviathan, it's Jewel, and not any of the others, who asks him privately if he's going to be okay with killing it, and how she comforts Chiana during the fight. She's no longer struggling to fit in, but is now one of the family. Pity it's right at the time when everyone is basically saying goodbye. And they also threw in their very long paragraph about Babylon 5 and why we should watch it, but then they also said, with that being said, I'm actually going to recommend against using it for your next podcast. I know you guys said you don't want to do another SF, science fiction show, for your next one, so you want to avoid it for that reason, but mainly because it's quite dated, like over 20 years old. If you were to drag it out for 5 full seasons, you might start to resent it after a while. There are quite a few podcasts out there that have already done that. I listen to a couple now, and there are already some completed. What I notice from them is that they're so used to short seasons these days and instant gratification that even though they like what they're seeing, they sound resentful at having to wait to watch more. So I recommend you guys watch it without having to think about making a podcast and just marathon the crap out of it. Then years from now, maybe 1 or 2 or 5 or 6, but eventually, after it's been stuck in your head going round and round, do a rewatch and read background spoilers info on each episode, or listen to one of the podcasts out there to find all the hidden clues, and then you'll really see what we fans love so much about Babylon 5. I'm really happy that so much of the Farscape community has latched on to our attempts to find other shows, especially stuff like Babylon 5, where we've clearly heard that it's interesting but didn't know why, so I appreciate that. And our final email is from Brian Graham, who emailed us many weeks ago, talking about how they recently got into the show and were catching up, and now they say, "Howdy, I'm still catching up, so this is probably way out of date, but I didn't hear any follow-up about it on 15, so I thought I would say, per your discussion about how weird it is that Chiana decided to put her life disc in her gut, you have to remember that when we first met her, she had been imprisoned by her people, so my assumption is that that was the only place that she could put it where they wouldn't confiscate it. Still trying to catch up, maybe I'll be current eventually. Cheers, Brian." This is actually not Brian, our guest for this episode, if people can't tell, it's a different Brian. Thank you, Brian, for listening to the show, and we hope when you catch up and you hear us reading your email, you'll be excited, or happy, or whatever. And We appreciate your listens, and thank you for the correction. Finally, we have a Reddit thread where we got a few interesting comments, starting with me, actually, where I said, before someone calls me out, I know that I said Scorpius at the end when talking about the self-sacrifice when I meant to say Crace. And then I Like My Tea Sweet said, unacceptable, you must re-record the whole thing. And Blue Blaze Spear said, why so difficult? That joke is still fresh. Blue Blaze Spear with a shorter comment than usual. The hoops taken out of Dargo's collarbones were, indeed, a part of the restraints that held him when he was imprisoned by the Peacekeepers. I know he has face tattoos, but he's not that alt. Also agreeing with me that non-Dargo Luxons never look intimidating. And, I like this part a lot, does this podcast have a new dramatic reading section? It was scored and everything. And I will say that as a semi-amateur, semi-professional, I guess, audio editor, I find putting music behind people speaking to be really an easy way to convey like fun emotion or just like tone. So it's like an easy way to do audio editing for people out there who want to do a podcast like this. So I recommend it, and it's like I like doing it a lot, and I wish I could do it every week, but sometimes these episodes are really long, and I try to listen to all of them, and I don't have time to do fun edits like that every time. Finally, they said, I knew that Magellan would dig that shot of Scorpius standing there with the water raining down around him and the camera with the slight Dutch angle. It's a beautiful and iconic shot. The whole scene between John and Scorpius is great. As for why there would be so much water raining down, they're on a collapsing spaceship with a lake in it. A lake. And then Snowdrift replies, this ship is dead, the experiment is over. Those lines always stand out to me every rewatch. Which, yeah, I feel like on my part, I didn't do the John reading that well, but I thought that scene was a lot of fun to read, and it's a fantastic scene. Leo Chris in here with a comment just from yesterday. Again, late comment where I listened to the episode a long while ago, but I wanted to say I'd listened to the Frel out of a lost podcast hosted by you two. Which, hey Magellan, wink wink, nudge nudge, the people want it. Although we have a lot of different ideas, like I've said before. Also, in terms of doing a post-Peacekeeper Wars podcast regarding other media who have referenced Farscape, have you decided whether or not you'll want to cover the official Farscape comics? They take place after Peacekeeper Wars in the continuity. Well, for the most part, because there's also a few set in Season 3. They're not the worst and not the best, I think. I mean, I don't know what the fandom as a whole feels, but I feel like they'd be a love it or hate it type of thing. This was a similar thing that we ran into when we did Buffy Chats, the not actual podcast, but just discussion that Magellan and I did 2 years ago, which was that we wanted to read the Buffy Season 8 and 9 and whatever 10 comics that they're on, but we never felt motivated enough to go out and purchase them, because Netflix is so easy. But if people know of an easy way to get a hold of those Farscape comics, like a relatively cheap way to get a hold of all of them, let us know, because that would definitely increase our chances of actually covering those, but I definitely would like to. That's going to do it for the Moyabag this week, folks. Thank you for all of the questions and comments. You can tweet at us at ScapeChatz, you can put a comment in our Reddit threads over at reddit.com/r/Farscape, and you can email us at scapechats@gmail.com. I'll send it back to Brian, Magellan, and past me to finish up their discussion of Dog with Two Bones. And that's why it's so fascinating to me that this is the season finale.
Right.
This episode it feels like a season 4 episode 1. And I think that was intentional because Into the Lines then ends so cleanly and is so heroic ending. We're doing all right, and holy shit, what's gonna come next? And then this episode is it starts with the mystery of the woman, then it becomes about the rogue Leviathan, then that's taken care of, and then the visions are taken care of, and you're the episode's over, right? And then what's left for season 4? And then they just fucking poop all over the whole show. They're no. Nothing is happy.
We gotta ruin everything real quick.
Yeah, we're not out of the woods just yet. And so the last 10 minutes of the show are just heart-wrenching, emotional, tragic, and then whoops, end of the episode, end of the season. See you in several months. Which I really appreciated, because it was John is now out of the visions, and he's talking to Aaron, and they're having that back and forth about do you want to come to Earth with me, or do you want to leave? Do you want to stay on this adventure with me? And there are some lines in there that I think we should find, because there's some really good stuff.
Yeah.
And then let's find that.
Beep boop, beep boop.
Oh, this is very long. It's the whole bottom of the transcript, if y'all have the transcript.
Yeah, I got the transcript.
In front of you. I'm going to put it in the Skype chat in case Brian wants it.
I don't have it, but I have every line committed to memory because I'm a huge nerd. to be an official Scuppy, which, as you know, is what we call ourselves.
Yeah.
Hey. Yes.
Because someone was like, oh, there's Scapers are Farscape fans. I'm like, that's great. What are ScapeChatz fans? And it's like, all right, sure, Scuppies is fine. I'll take it. Crew members is cute, but Scuppies is
You've been
dumb.
against Scuppies for a long time, Alan.
It's but the thing is, like, no, crew members hasn't caught on whatsoever. So I've given up on it. Nobody wanted mine, so we're taking yours.
Great.
So yeah, the John and Aaron scene at the very end is amazing, and they're talking about like, John says, you're not leaving without me, and she says, what do you want? He's like, you. And she says, I'm afraid that it's not that easy. You see, you died. I watched that happen, and yet you're still alive. Talking about how they don't say goodbyes, and you see, you leave, and then you come back, and then I can't handle the in-between, Aaron. Say goodbye. Like, they're trying to just cut it off. Like, maybe we can just end this relationship and just fucking go our separate ways, finally. Because clearly things aren't going great every time we get together. I died once. You died once. There's just a lot of dying.
The line I absolutely love is she's walking away, and then he says, do you love John Crichton?
Yep.
And it's like, well, good question.
She says, yes.
Yeah.
And he says, then what does that taste like? And she says, yesterday. Which is...
in paper, that's not good, but they really do sell it.
Yeah, that reading that is like terrible, but it's totally like you have to read that out loud to get it, right?
Yeah.
And he says, well, nobody can compete with that. I am much better dead. And then they yell a bunch, and he says, I can't let the one thing I love fly away in a crappy little ship. I'm like reading the saddest like tear jerking out lines ever.
Here's this.
Like I'm skimming them, and then
We
like that side. And then they do the coin toss.
Right,
Yes,
the coin toss.
Well, before they do that, so there's a good moment. I particularly enjoy well-staged shots, and there's a really good one where you see the camera's focusing on Aaron. She's got her back to Crichton. He's in the background, out of focus, and the camera stays on her. She says, don't make me say goodbye, and don't make me stay. And there's kind of this pause. You can't even see his reaction to that. The camera just stays on her until you see him just turn and walk away, which I think really does a good job visually of treating how powerless he is in this moment.
Yeah.
right.
He's literally minimalized to the background for that entire shot.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever they have important John and Aaron scenes, they like crank up the directorial flair and do stuff like that, and I always appreciate it because it like heightens the emotion in just a really simple like cinematic way. And then they do the coin toss, which I was speaking to Magellan in we were warming up before the last episode, and I was like, do you think that ending the episode on the coin toss would have been a better ending? And he said, fuck no, I would have hated that. Because they say like, oh, heads up, you stay, heads up, we leave each other forever. And then he says, absolutely, fate. And then he flips it, and it goes into the air, and then it cuts away. And you're like, wait, is this going to be the end? And then there's like 5 more minutes.
Yeah.
And a lot more yelling about wormholes.
Because it would have been the totally wrong question to end on. The question of like, ooh, are they going to be together or not? Like, that's not the question. The question is, it's bad now. They're going to part. How are they going to get back together? Because we know that they're going to end up together, or Farscape is really going to make us sad. But I don't think I think they're going to, be with each other. So if you're giving me the coin toss of like, ooh, that would just make me upset.
I think in a way that this scene is like sort of in like a Shakespearean way is the characters trying to rebel against the plot, because they realize that like this show cannot survive without the two of them together. And yet they finally come to the realization that like every time we're together, every time we hang out and we go on these adventures, like someone dies, someone gets fucked up, we're going to eventually we're going to be aged horribly by this. This is objectively bad for us, but we still want to do it. Mm-hmm. Like we still like it, but maybe like they're just kind of like grappling with that. So it's more the question of like, do we want to run away from what the show has designated for us in a sort of like meta-textual way? And then just kind of like the cosmic realization that like, no, we can't. Because Aaron leaves, but again, like as the season ends, we have characters all by themselves. Everybody's alone, but we know they're gonna get back together. Probably in like one episode, because that's Farscape. It's a show about people together, and they can't just exist on their own anymore. So it ends, and Aaron leaves, and she leaves in her prowler, and that part's really sad. And then Moya what is it like? There's a wormhole. I was a little confused by like the circumstances of the scene.
Mm-hmm.
But,
So,
yeah, basically a wormhole just opens underneath Moya and sucks her in.
Oh, okay.
That's what I thought. John opened that one, right?
No.
Did you say no?
No.
Oh, it just randomly opened?
It just randomly opened.
Oh,
that's
tragic.
Some horseshit.
No. Because I'm not going to spoil anything for you. But
that's gonna come back.
it was not random, and it was not John.
Ooh.
Uh-oh.
Ruh-roh, Shaggy.
Uh-oh.
So the
wormhole.
one thing Farscape I think does a really good job of is kind of setting up in their last episode of a season, rather than just ending a story, they also open new threads.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of points in this episode that you may not have caught on to until you see them start to be resolved. But the wormhole was one of them where they're kind of setting up some storylines for season 4.
What if Scorpius opened the wormhole? Predictions. Don't answer them though.
I'm not spoiling it.
Yeah.
I did want to say about the coin toss again. I latch on to the visual staging of a shot.
Yeah.
And at the end of this argument, Crichton and Aaron, they're both clinging to like one last thread of hope. And for Aaron, that's fate. And for Crichton, that's Aaron. Mm-hmm. And so if you watch the coin toss, each of them focuses on that line. So Aaron watches the coin, but John watches Aaron.
Yep.
I love that staging.
Yeah, exactly. They're keeping their eyes on the thing that their eyes are on the prize, if you will.
Yeah. In a very real way. It's visual poetry, man. I love it.
Absolutely. It's one of the best. It's one of the best scenes on the show. And it really makes it hammers home so much harder the ending where she's gone and John's like, well, I'm kind of empty right now. Also, my ship is empty. Hey, pilot, you think you could like take me with you through, like we could like go warp somewhere? And pilot's like, oh sure, yeah, let's go through this wormhole. Whoops! Pilot went through the wormhole. Moya went through the wormhole. John did not go through the wormhole.
Right. Well, and there's one big thing that we're just gonna have to say.
We're gonna get to it. I promise you. It's like the last line of the episode. Well, no, or maybe it comes before John is alone.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, I'm like, oh wait, no, is it the last line? I'm trying to.
It's not the last
before
line.
He's
No.
alone.
Oh, okay. So yeah, he finds out right before he. How does he find out then?
It's like in his subconscious, like his subconscious knows or something.
Harvey. It was Harvey.
knows.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
Harvey tells him, and as you saw again in Into the Lion's Den, Harvey says, having chosen our partnership above all else, your fate is now mine, so my gift to you. And he shows her, what old woman, the grandma character, had told John, had shown him, but managed to hide somehow in his psyche, Harvey was able to access.
Yeah.
And so, the old woman, like, kind of meant for this to be maybe
This was
trickled
the
out
secret
over
she
time.
wanted to get out.
Or to start getting him accustomed to the idea, like something
Yeah.
slowly. But Harvey was very quick to be like, you know what? Here you go. I'll give it to you now. There it is.
Aaron's pregnant.
Dun dun dun.
Oh no! That's not even. It's not like it's not bad news. It's just crazy. It's like, well, shit.
Well, I think for John, it's not like she's pregnant. It's she didn't tell me. Is the big troublesome part of it.
Right. I'm wondering because based on the timeline of the show, then like which time that they had sex is the one where that was
I think
conceived.
it's Talon John's kid.
Oh fuck!
Yeah, she hasn't boned down with this guy in a while.
I mean, but that's why I'm saying I don't know the timeline of the show because there was that like the Flax, they had sex.
That was probably a while ago. That was cycles
Okay.
ago.
You also have to take into account that, Aaron is Sebacean, not human. So what is the gestation period for her species?
Oh, true. Oh my god.
Or it could have been Crace, because I don't think humans and Sebaceans can have kids.
But when would Aaron and Crazy?
Well, I think they did confirm that. So, or at least offhandedly, if you recall back to the Look at the Princess trilogy, the whole reason they knew that John was compatible with Princess Catroya? I forget
Catrala?
the name.
Yeah.
Catrala was because they had that thing where if you each take a dab on your tongue and then kiss and it's sweet, it means you're genetically compatible.
I love Farscape.
That's right.
So
that's right.
At least superficially, they have implied that they are compatible genetically.
Right.
Yeah. You're right.
But again, what a pregnancy of that looks like, who the hell knows?
Yeah, who knows?
Oh God. Well, you know. You know.
But you don't.
Yes, very true. I'm gonna say the baby is cool, and it's not gonna be born until like after Peacekeeper Wars. It's gonna be like gestating for the rest of the show.
Here's what I'm just going to give you one quick spoiler, which is it turns out that it's a gunship and their baby is loaded with weapons.
Talon 2, Electric Boogaloo.
It comes with like a plasma cannon instead of a penis or something.
But it also has like a weird southern accent, so it still has like elements of both of them, and long black hair. But yeah,
awesome.
so it really does. I'd be into that. I was joking, but it sounds kind of cool.
Comic book.
Oh, that's gotta be. I don't know how weird the comics get, but I'm sure there's something like that on the internet, maybe. What was I gonna say? Yeah, so the episode ends with John being alone and being like, well, shit, I didn't get warped with everyone else. Now I'm by myself. Also, my lady's pregnant. Also,
I'm out of fuel in the middle of nowhere.
oh no. And the last line is, you have got to be kidding me, which is weirdly what I said when I watched that. Because it just felt like the colossal piling on of problems in the last 2 minutes of like, shit, next time. No! Why would you end on all of these issues? But I guess that's how that works, is now in, what was it, like 2 months between Dog with Two Bones and Crichton Kicks, the fan base was left to be sad.
I believe we were stewing in it, as we said.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly. Right, because this one was April, and then Crichton Kicks was June 7th. So, 2 months.
And that was because they had such a huge gap between in the middle of season 3, or like right before the finale.
Inch and Lions then, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was like an 8-month wait or something like that.
It was the one before Inch, and then Inch was the return from the break, yeah. Oof. So that is that's Dog with Two Bones. Magellan?
Alan?
I usually just say it. I wanted to mix it up this time. Magellan, could you read us the background information for this episode, please?
I sure can. Discounting flashbacks. This is the 5th episode in which Kent McCord appears as a fake or imagined version of Jack Crichton. He's done that more than the real guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Is he what?
Well, they haven't exactly been back to Earth, so
Yeah.
Right. What are we? We're probably not gonna see the real.
Right, so
Jack.
it's been tough. Well, I don't know. Maybe. Executive producer David Kemper is hiding under the table during the breakfast speeches. He was talking to Ben Browder and Claudia Black when the director yelled action and had nowhere to go.
That's hilarious.
I love that.
I can't move.
That's really funny.
Don't film me.
and I've looked for him. I haven't been able to spot him in there, but I've looked.
The breakfast scene, like when Aaron is talking to Jack, isn't it that one?
I thought they were saying in the wedding scene when they're doing the toasts, but maybe it was the breakfast scene. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
I think the toasts. Yeah, it's the toasts.
Oh, the breakfast. Okay, yeah, you're right.
That's where I looked, and I was looking to see if like maybe I saw like an errant foot sticking out from under the table, but I haven't spotted him yet.
It's a spare. He guest starred as one of the pilot tentacles under the table.
Melissa Jaffer makes her first appearance here as Naranti, the old woman, though her character would not be given a name until the 3rd episode of the next/4th season. So,
And since you already spoiled it, her full name is Naranti Utu Pralatong.
Oh God, everyone on the show has cool names.
Good name.
What's Jewel's full name, Magellan?
I have it written down. I don't remember.
Jalushka something. I think it is
Jalushka something Hentasavalis.
Yeah.
Give it a sec. Jalushka Tunai Fentahovalis. Good.
The script page that revealed Aaron's pregnancy was only given to the cast members and crew who required it. All of the others stated that the revelation was, Aaron really loves you. So, there's that.
Yeah.
The centerpiece at the wedding is Moya.
Yep. I
Aaron-
picked up on that.
Aaron's wedding dress is the same worn by Princess Katrala in the Look at the Princess episodes, Crichton's other marriage. Claudia Black found it in the wardrobe department and suggested it to Andrew Prowse. It's a cool little thing.
But then they got like fake blood all over it, so that prop's probably been retired.
That and one of Jewel's old wigs.
Crew members from every department helped move the pilot puppet up 2 flights of stairs to the location of the wedding breakfast, which I believe we mentioned earlier. It's a heavy puppet.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
The entire comic sequence of Aaron trying on dresses had to be cut down due to time considerations. I think they also cut what was comic about it. I didn't find it super funny.
Right, it was just like, oh shit, dresses are hard. I can't find. Ugh, this sucks.
Well, they kind of had
Not
that
like a
one
good
little sex joke where, you know, she comes out of the one dress and she's like, it doesn't work. And he's all like, oh, it works. Just not for the wedding. And then he like kind of chases her into the back. And that idiot American cashier lady like chases after him when she realizes what's about to happen.
It's like Tom and Jerry.
The scene where Erin tells Jack her fears for the future was filmed in the dining room of the hotel where the wedding breakfast was shot. It kind of looked like, like a hotel.
Yeah, there's some stuff in the Illustrated Companion about how it's just like, yeah, we rented out a hotel for like way too long and they got mad at us, but we got to like play around in a fun hotel and film a show.
The idea of the coin flip was suggested by Claudia Black during discussions with Ben Browder, David Kemper, and Andrew Prowse. Erin's dying line, quote, "I've never felt better," is a deliberate echo of the other Crichton's death scene in Infinite Possibilities, Icarus Abides.
Yep.
And then this is a piece of background info I love. This episode features several deleted scenes, including ones establishing the elderly Leviathan Elac and the location of an Interion colony which interests Jewel. Other deleted scenes originate from John's vision and include Pilot working in a circus after being fired from MIT, Erin shooting a lorry in a crosswalk, Rigel hiring strippers for Crichton's bachelor party, and a sequence in which Dargo leads a conga line at the wedding reception.
Fuck.
Yeah, what the fuck? Why did
This episode probably went too long and they had to cut all the fun out.
Yeah.
I want all of that.
Just the sentence,
Wait, can we...
Pilot working in a circus after being fired from MIT. Like, all right, good.
Dargo
That
conga
footage
line's
has
what
to
I'm-
exist somewhere, right?
It must.
Someone let us know if the season 3 DVDs have like deleted scenes or something.
And you
on
know,
them.
Pilot
I
got
have
that.
those DVDs and I've not found those. So
Imagine if Pilot got that job at MIT as if it was like Goodwill Hunting, like Pilot's at the
Oh my God.
chalkboard in the hall with all his tentacles on it. Yeah, that's funny.
he like solves like loop quantum gravity and they give him a job.
And then weirdly, Mini Driver's in it. That's the person that was
I
in
was with
this
you
thing.
there.
Yep. I'm gonna let's skim through the Illustrated Companion, see if there's anything that you missed. The scene between Crichton and Dargo that cuts from Dargo's ship, the Growler, to the dockside and back is one of Simcoe's favorite parts of the episode. We worked really hard making that work. There were lots of different versions, and we ended up improvising using long lenses and long takes. Andrew gave us a lot of looseness to perform that. There's talk in here about how they actually planned to make the coin toss the final scene of the episode, so I was right. Although the coin toss initially seemed like a good way to end the season, there was more. This is the best part, actually. Only 4 copies were made of the script page that contained the old woman's revelation to Crichton. Nobody had a clue, Kemper says. Even Ben didn't have the page until the last minute.
Whoa.
So they're separated. Erin is pregnant, Crichton finds out, and on top of everything, Moya gets swallowed by a wormhole. Andrew and I knew we had a final scene that worked. So, imagine coming in the last day of shooting, and they're like, by the way, the other character's pregnant.
Whoa.
By the way, they got renewed for season 4. Fuck!
Oh.
Exactly. Wedding scenes took 2 days to shoot. I thought the hotel management was going to throw us out. When Pilot arrived at the location, it was all hands on deck to get him up the stairs. Pilot doesn't get out much, as you know, so to mark the occasion, we let the special effects team rig some squibs on him for the first time. What are squibs?
They're the things that blow up and it looks like it's
They
the blood
explode.
packs.
Yeah, when they get shot.
Oh, I gotcha. They had fun with those, I imagine.
Yeah.
The wedding scenes seem like such a harbinger of doom, Claudia Black comments. I went through the old costumes and found Catral's wedding dress, like you mentioned. I wanted there to be a quirky resonance there of that other woman Crichton has married. That's kind of cute.
Mm-hmm.
And Black contributed a number of ideas to the episode, including Erin's dying line. We realized that even though it was the other Crichton who said this, if this one was dying, he would probably say the same thing, so he could give the line to someone dying in a fantasy.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And what a scene. And I think that is it for Dog with Two Bones. Folks, boys, lads.
I had a couple more things I was gonna just mention here.
Oh, please
for
do.
So I wanted to give a callback to one of your Moyabags and fellow Redditor Blue Blaze Spear made a comment about talking about the split with John back after what is it? And thanks for sharing and eat me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna read just what he said here because I think it thematically applies to here. Is the reason it makes the most sense for me to have John be the only character that gets split is because he's the only character who has two motivations, and sadly, they're motivations that are mostly at odds. With the two Johns, we get to see him chase both goals. On the one hand, he wants to run off with Aaron and live happily ever after, which is a goal he gets to chase on Talon. But on the other hand, he wants to find a way back home to Earth, which will likely be through cracking his wormhole knowledge, which is a goal he gets to chase aboard Moya.
Yeah.
And I like that because this episode, Dog with Two Bones, is sort of the summation of these two goals together when he tries to put them together. And interestingly, he is the dog with two bones. He even describes the scenario where the dog opens the mouth to get the other bone and he loses them both. Right. And that's exactly what happens here by the end. He loses Aaron, and then when he's kind of out there, floating adrift, he loses Moya and therefore access to the wormhole research and the ability, or possibly being alive, but he's stranded alone. So he is the dog with two bones.
Right. Before
Dummy.
he was two dogs with two bones. And then
now he's one dog with no bones.
Yeah.
Boneless dog.
Womp womp.
Did you have any other notes?
Yeah. I was gonna say that the end setting. I said there's a couple things they set up thematically for season 4. So him ending up kind of just adrift in space, I feel like tonally at least is a good lead in for what the early parts of season 4 become.
Awesome.
There's a little bit of a hint when Chiana is having her vision. She says a couple of words. One of the words she says is Darnez.
Whoa.
And it's a little bit of a hint of something to come.
Spooky.
So, and then I've got, just for Magellan, I've got 2 translator microbe moments.
Yay.
So.
We have spread our infection of this dumb obsession into the fan base. Damn it!
And I'll be honest, like as someone who's been a fan of the show, watched it when it originally ran, I don't know that I've ever given a ton of thought.
Of course you haven't. It's not worth your time.
It's not worth anybody's time. But now I'm obsessed with it because now I am like, wait a second.
Yay.
So at one point, Rigel is complaining about. Rigel's complaining about Talon being the cause of problems again, and he's like, I knew we should have dumped his debris, and I think it was Aaron says like, without him you wouldn't be here, so show some respect. And he says, respect my tiny shiny hiney.
Hey, that's right. How do they rhyme?
Rhymes apparently survive translation.
So that means rap music survived into the uncharted territories. That's great. I'm very happy about that.
In about 500 years, when Biggie the broadcasts finally make it out that way into the uncharted territories. I feel like Pilot would be a Nas fan. Anyways. And then my other moment here is they're trying to figure out what's going on, and Rigel asks Pilot, like, can't you work it out with the other pilot? And Pilot says, like, he hasn't answered my request yet, but I'm trying. And Rigel says, well, that's certainly true. So homonyms also survive translation.
Oh shit, you're right.
Very
fucking translator microbes, I swear. Didn't someone describe it to us as like maybe you should just interpret it as they're translating the gist of it?
Well, but then it doesn't, rhyming and homonyms don't make sense.
Oh, okay. So that, yeah. If it was a literal translation, then either way it doesn't work. Wow, they messed up. Great, we did it.
We've finally broken it.
Haha.
Now we can never watch the show again.
Yep. But we have to, Brian. We just have to. We're not out of the woods just yet.
I'm sorry. The show's over. Listeners, thanks for listening. This has been ScapeChatz, the final episode. I'm really sorry about this.
We're going to start our next show where we watch, we're going to watch it in backwards order, starting with Peacekeeper Wars, and just figure out what happened in season 4. That's not true, but next week, we are not watching a new episode of ScapeChatz. We're not watching a new episode of Farscape or ScapeChatz. We're doing one of our favorite things, which is a recap episode, where we're going to recap my favorite season so far, which is season 3. So send us in your questions, your comments for that. We already have it laid out. We're going to do it the same way that we've done before, where we talk about favorite, least favorite, weirdest, best, everything, episodes. And we're going to try to predict what happens in season 4 as 2 fresh little young newcomer boys. And we're going to try and summarize the plot of season 3 in like a paragraph. So I think it'll be a fun little adventure.
Woo.
Yeah. And let's do some housekeeping next. Brian, where can people... Brian, where can people find you on the internet?
Well, they can find me. So my friend Derek and I, we run another podcast. So, and I told him I would give props to it. So it's called Lost or Profound. You can find it at lostorprofound.com or facebook.com/lostorprofound or Twitter at lostorprofound. And here's my pitch. ScapeChatz listeners, do you enjoy like well thought out commentary on sci-fi television? Then tune into Lost or Profound, where we have absolutely none of that, but we, bitch and complain about politics.
We also have absolutely
We also have none of that. What are you saying?
If you love all those things, expect none of it. It's really poorly produced, and we swear a lot. But listen to it. So give it a listen if you like. If you don't, that's fine too.
I listened to an episode the other day, and I was a fan. I enjoyed it. I think you guys have a very fun dynamic.
It's mostly just because we're idiots and we don't know what we're doing.
Right. It tends to be, from what we've determined, tends to be good podcasting material. Just put two idiots into a basket and shake it up, and out comes magic. And I want to say, Brian, thank you for being a listener, and thank you for being such a dedicated commenter and fan. It's propelled us to continue doing it so much more than we originally planned to. Like, I love that we have this fan base that is willing to interact with us and have a dialogue and also be on our show with us. Like, it's been amazing, and I had a lot of fun.
Well, thanks for having me. It's been a lot of fun, and I would appreciate it if you just called us Scuppies again.
Yay!
Scuppies is the new canonical name for ScapeChatz listeners. There
Yeah,
it's been locked in. And I can be found at twitter.com/Alan Ibrahim, spelled ALLENIBRAHIM. Jalen?
I can be found on Twitter at JustAFluke. That's JUSTAPFLUKE.
But you can pop into the Reddit thread over at reddit.com/r/Farscape, where users like Brian, aka Domain 101. Wait a minute, did we not say who you were before? It's you. You're the commenter.
Because then I'd have to own up to having that username.
Is there a story behind it?
Only a really, really dumb one of a 16-year-old kid on AOL for the first time is like, I'm gonna pick a cool username because, back then, you could have gotten your real name, but that wouldn't have been cool. And now what I wouldn't give to just have like Brian Hall or something like that. But
yeah,
I couldn't, so I was like, I'm Domain 101, and that'll be cool forever. And turns out that's not true. But once you have that, you can't shake it.
I've never been able to pick a good online. That's why my Twitter account is just my name, because it's like I can't stick to any good like handle. But
and you get saddled with the names that have like, you got to be like, that guy like 473, because apparently there's 472 other people, and so at a time when I could have gotten a username without the numbers, because I was still pretty early days, I still was like, it needs a number to be cool. So that's just a glimpse into my dumb young mind.
Gotta love teens.
I was so angsty.
Yeah. And you can follow the show at ScapeChatz, and you can check out those Reddit threads, and we have a Tumblr, scapechatz.tumblr.com, where we got our first anonymous ask recently. It was about a person who wants to guest host an episode, so I'm not going to out them yet, but they will be on an episode soon. And that's at scapechatz.tumblr.com. I think that's everything, folks. So I guess for one last time for Season 3 of Farscape, let's say goodbye, and let's get the Frel out of here. What's the pharmaceutical name for Xanax? Because I learned it like yesterday. I think it's citalopram.
Scrimtamtamemophen.
Good.
Yeah.
Hey, you're right. That's so weird.
Yeah, scrimtamtamemophen.
It's alprazolam.
Well, I wasn't as wrong as that sounds.
Alprazolam is actually my World of Warcraft character's name.